They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
Hello, and welcome to the Warp Shelf. I'm Frank Duran.
I'm Deshaun Vasquez.
And today, it's the end of times, guys. It's the apocalypse. I don't mean to scare you or nothing, but this is at least several movies you've seen before.
Yeah, you had actually seen my post the other day where Netflix recommended I watch Outbreak.
Yeah, you're like, oh, thanks, Netflix.
Just like recommended for you. It's just like, oh, thanks a lot. I've seen Outbreak, thank you very much.
Yeah,
I would rather watch Contagion, personally, but whatever.
Just to be, you know, nice. Just make a good thing. So we're talking today about the changing landscape in the coronavirus pandemic.
Yeah,
we're talking,
specifically as far as movies are concerned.
Yeah, because you can't go to the movie theaters, guys. They've completely shut them down.
Yeah, as far as time is... At the time of this episode, absolutely.
Yeah, every movie theater around us has closed down. Could this be the time for drive-in movie theaters to arise and take over instead of regular movie theaters? Maybe. But basically, it's right now we're dealing with not a complete shutdown in Boston, but we are, 10 or less groups, so you can't operate a movie theater that way.
Restrictions have already been enforced.
Yeah, you can't operate a movie theater that way. So what are companies going to do now that there's no theater to send a movie to?
So far, the option has been early release for home media, specifically digital.
Yeah, and so far we have, is it Legendary who's put out a couple of them, or is it Universal? It's NBC Universal.
Done a bunch.
NBC Universal put out Invisible Man, The Hunt, and something.
Those are the two big ones.
Emma,
yes.
And then we have Disney jumping on the train by putting Onward out, literally surprise dropping it the day last Friday.
Yeah, and it's only been in theaters for like 2 weeks.
So and then they and it's coming to Disney Plus, which I feel like is a huge boon to Disney Plus people on April 3rd. So it's one of those things where we're seeing these movies being like, well, we were going to release, and it doesn't look like there's any foreseeable...
Yeah, there's no real time frame in which we can see people actually being able to go out and see this, so might as well recoup it somehow.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you want to see how is this actually going to work out. In a world where we don't have a box office, how do we calculate box office numbers? Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. A bunch of these movies are coming out, $20 for a rental price that they want to put you through. So it's usually it's not the like a $6 or $7 rental. They are $20
which
rentals.
Makes sense because these are brand new.
They are brand new, and that makes sense. To be fair, $20 would be a ticket and 1/4 of another ticket at local theaters around here. Usually it's like $15,
and most
$13
people I know
to $15
don't really go by
tickets.
themselves. So
exactly. So you're going to spend more than that, and you're already stuck inside, so you might as well spend the $20.
But the real question is, after this subsides, where does that leave movie theaters from here on out?
Exactly. Where does this all go, and what movies are going to directly have to deal with this right now is my other discussion. So like I said, we'll go right to your topic. What is the future of movie theaters? Like, what did they do? I suggested that drive-ins are a way to do it. You could be 6 feet away in another car from another family, and you never fucking have to see them.
This has been a conversation for like the past decade as digital has become more prevalent. The sort of conversation of the need for movie theaters, especially when the only time people tend to go out and actually see something tends to be big tentpoles.
Yeah.
So it's the idea of, it's like, well, do we need these aside from maybe just big tentpole films that are treated like events, and that's where the whole like theme park conversation kind of comes into, where it's more like a spectacle thing.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, I mean, that is how the medium more or less started.
Yeah, basically.
It's just a matter of like, well, where do things go now from here? Will this sort of change the landscape? Maybe we won't be so afraid to separate the two, maybe
or release them both at the same time.
Or maybe have them
Guns
coincide.
Akimbo just did it like literally last month. They dropped in theaters and on demand at the same time, which I thought was real smart, but a lot of people were like, oh, they're going to lose on ticket prices. But like now in a world where there's no ticket prices, they were already ahead of the game where they had a new Daniel Radcliffe movie out on digital.
It's an interesting discussion. And to be honest, we do, to a certain extent, put a little too much stake into box office numbers.
Yeah, absolutely, because it like you said, it's only a certain person who is going to the theater now. I love going to the theater. Guys, don't get me wrong. I fucking love going to the theater.
Yeah,
I think it's a magical experience. If you haven't seen The Majestic, the movie, and then cried afterward because you understood what the fuck they were talking about in that movie, like you're the one who's going to see the movies all the time in theaters. But if you didn't and you didn't really understand, you're not probably gonna go see that.
Yeah, and a bunch of directors have been like weighing on the topic. I know like Edgar Wright and Nolan are actually trying to like chip in to try and support theaters. The big ones don't really necessarily need the help as far as the company is concerned, but they want to make sure
because they are usually a subsidiary of some bigger company.
But they want to make sure the employees themselves are still like getting treated somehow since they're out of work for a good while.
I worry for to bring some local into it. I worry for the Coolidge and like the Brattle Theater,
just any sort of independent theater.
I worry for the Somerville Theater. I worry for these theaters that are small and wonderful and bringing us these like great independent films all the time, and then now it was already a dwindling audience going to those things, and now you have no audience going to those things. What do you like? It's crazy.
Yeah, there's already been talks of like some independent theaters that like once this is over, they might not reopen.
Yeah, it's really sad because this is though some of my best movie going experiences have been at those tiny theaters. You know,
and
like
even just beyond that, the theater experience is something that you can't really quantify, I would think.
No.
It's one of those things where it can change how you receive a
film.
film. Not only with the collective experience of the people you're going with might react differently than if you were sitting at home, but some films just kind of play differently at a theater. I think the big one that comes to mind is when you and I went to go see Gravity.
Yeah.
We had the early screening, so we saw it maybe like 2 months before it actually came out and before it like lit the world on fire and everyone was talking about it. But it was one of those things where, like, it was a fantastic theater experience.
It really was
fun. It was tense. Watching it on home media...
It was so big on screen.
Yeah,
like
watching it on home media never had these same effects.
And I always felt like I'm one of those weirdos. Now I'm gonna get something about this. I know. I never saw Avatar in theaters. Not Avatar: The Last Airbender, because I did see that at midnight. And talk about crowd mentality. People at the end, some guy stood up and went, "Boo! That sucked!" And everyone went, "Yes," to him, not the movie. Like they were like, "Yes, that's correct." It was, but Avatar, James Cameron's Avatar, blue people, Na'vi, I never saw that in theaters.
I did see it in theaters, but I didn't see it in 3D.
And that's another thing. People who had seen it in theaters and IMAX and in 3D always told me I missed out on it because I saw it at home media first, and I was kind of like Pocahontas with aliens, like, and I know a lot, like I know everyone thinks that, but the point is that I didn't get the full, like, theatrical experience of getting thrown into this world that maybe those people got that I didn't. And I feel like I realized that because I rode on the rides they have at Disney. They have those rides. I forget what it's fucking called. Somebody's gonna be like, "Frick, how could you forget about Pandora something something something?" But I stood in line for an hour and a half to ride their 3D ride where you ride on the pterodactyl thing. And
I can't weigh in. I've never been.
And it was mind blowing. Like, like to be kind of thrown into this beautiful, gigantic screen experience. And I was kind of like, maybe this is what I missed the
It's
first
like,
time.
I think I get it.
I think I understand. Like, I still don't think that movie's that great, and it really stands to. We'll have to see the sequels, but if those ever happen.
Discussion. Oh my god! It's like there are two movies that are never going to happen. Avatar 2 doesn't exist, Frank. You know what else doesn't exist? New Mutants doesn't exist.
That doesn't exist.
It's a fake movie. Never going to happen.
Never going to come out. Yeah, talk about a movie. Okay, so now is that a great way to transition into movies that need to come out digital right now, or they're never going to exist at all?
Well, Avatar 2 at least has the excuse of like, we're still making it.
Yeah.
Just put New Mutants out.
New Mutants should have been this week. They should have just dropped it this week with the rest of them, because right now people are jumping on the Invisible Man. Like, you watched it with your mom literally last night.
Yeah.
Like, that is... I'm sure that's the same exact reaction and everyone's having. They're like, oh, I wanted to see that movie, and there's no way I'm going to go see it in theaters, so, boop! I was thinking the same thing about The Hunt.
Yeah.
I might watch The Hunt because I was like, I'm definitely not paying for that in
and that
theaters.
was another one that had been like pushed back because of the controversy. And then it's like, all right, it's finally out. Oh, damn. It's like, well, what timing?
So, and I feel like Disney's really smart with it, because they first put it out with the $20, and then it goes on Disney Plus, so you have more of a reason to be like, oh, maybe I should get Disney Plus, at least for a little bit.
If the turnaround time is going to be that fast, then the question is, will the turnaround time be just as fast when things are back to normal?
Yeah, right.
Or is this going to become the start of a thing? And that's sort of the question. We don't know what's going to happen from here.
And you wonder which movies will come out, because New Mutants, I feel like it was so close that you should just put it out. That movie will not benefit, because the reason why I see most of the movies that were going to come out this week and got postponed, like The Quiet Place, is because they want to have premiere events. So you get all the labels talking about your movie. But the smart thing about them, like Onward and everything, is that everyone, including us, are talking about it right now.
For something like New Mutants, which, to be honest, I think New Mutants looks interesting. But it's just one of those
but
things
it's one of those ones where it's been reshot so much that I'm concerned.
Yeah, that, and even beyond that, because apparently the version we're getting is the one that didn't have any like reshoots done with it.
What?
I guess there was someone like really fighting for it over
Really?
there. It's just like, we got to get this out, because I think the initial plan was really to just kind of release it quietly.
Yeah.
Because it got lost in the shuffle of the Disney merger.
Did you?
Kept getting continuously
there was a quote
pushed
from
back.
the director literally yesterday that he said, he's like, I'm not concerned about negative criticisms on New Mutants because anything will be better than Dark Phoenix, and you're like, you got that one there, man. you're like,
You could jinx yourself by saying that, though.
Yeah, you're
Don't
like
be overly confident.
You're like, that's a little confident, man.
But it's one of those things where like it had gotten swept up in the whole Disney merger. So it got pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. They filmed this fucker like 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
And it still isn't out.
It's gonna be weird because I think I'm gonna say Arya, but the actress who
Maisie
plays
Williams.
Maisie Williams is really fucking young in that movie, and they're gonna put it out, and everyone's gonna be like, she's not that young right now.
And it's one of those things where like, as interesting as it looks to me, like it looks interesting enough, but even if we weren't going through this right now, I don't think as much
I
as
wouldn't
they're
be
trying to push
rushing
for
to the
it,
theaters.
It wouldn't really release to much fanfare, so you might as well just push it out.
So the big one for me is Wonder Woman 84. And I feel like that's a big one between you and me, is that we look forward to that movie, but I also worry about that coming to digital first.
We're still a couple of months out from it, and Warner Brothers has already been talking about, like, we might not have a choice.
Yeah, and with a name like Wonder Woman, maybe you don't need a premiere. Like, the thing about A Quiet Place 2 is you got to bring the fans together and be like, hey, guess what? We fucking did a sequel. Yeah. Like, Wonder Woman, you just have to be like, Wonder Woman, guys, and everyone will be like, fuck yeah. Like, everyone will be lined up ready to watch it.
Ready to wash their mouths free of Captain Marvel.
Yeah, exactly. And I have high hopes for Wonder Woman 84. I really do. I think that this was a cool direction to take it.
Yeah,
and
I'm
excited. Like,
I mean, it's a catch-22 because part of me would love to just get it immediately, just watch it as soon as possible because I have no patience. But I value being able to see that in the theater. I watched
Yeah.
Wonder Woman is the only film, because usually if I really like a film, I will go to see it twice.
Yes.
Most of the time. I think Wonder Woman's the only film I saw in theaters like 3 times.
Yeah.
I was all about it.
And the thing I want to make sure everyone knows when we're talking about all this, because we kind of sound like we're like, hey, give us our movies. But in reality, the movie industry is losing jobs. They literally cannot work. You cannot have more than 10 people. Who the fuck? What kind of movie can film with less than 10 people in a room? Nothing. Big budget Hollywood. Nothing.
Yeah.
You know, like...
Yeah, and that's just another topic entirely. Like, this
Yeah.
doesn't just affect movies that are due to release. This affects movies that are being shot right now.
Right now. They literally stopped filming Witcher 2. Season 2, and so many other shows and movies have literally been postponed. There's movies that are done, and I think that at this moment, if you're done with the movie, they should put it out on digital. Like, I know it sounds so scary, like, but like, I am like, this is the way to make the money, you know, like, this is the way that the future of it, because it's only gonna be us being inside for longer.
And even when things do settle down, it's one of those things where there's going to be that sort of awkward,
like, should I go out?
Quiet
should
period
I go
of
out?
Just like, am I really ready to like start going out again?
Yeah.
There's going to be a lull even when things calm down.
Yeah, even like, and I feel like especially with movie theaters, it's one of those places that people are going to be weird about. I feel like people will rush out to restaurants the minute this, like, they lift the ban on restaurants. People are going to be like, I want to go out and to eat. I feel it. Do you feel it? Like, I felt like I was this week. We were getting takeout, and I was like, it sounds so stupid because I love takeout, but I want to go to a restaurant. You know, like, it sounds dumb because
I think it's different for me because you eat out a lot more than I do. I tend to just cook at home.
Yeah,
most of the time.
So. Mary's a much better cook than I am, and I am terrible. Like,
so, I mean, I've sort of felt it.
Yeah,
it's just out of support, I guess, because you've seen like a bunch of like restaurants close where they say like takeout only, or just like, oh, you can order, but we'll bring it to you.
Yeah, we'll bring it to
one of those, and it's just like, yeesh.
Yeah, right. And we absolutely. I work in video production. We went to school for video production. We absolutely want to say that we support everybody, and we really want this to be over as soon as possible, so you guys could get back to work. This is the stuff we love. This is so sad to witness, like, a whole industry that you love come to a fucking screeching halt, except for the sales guys, you know, like, except for the sales and the editors, because they were isolated anyways. They weren't going anywhere.
It's just like, I've been stuck here all week, and I'll just be stuck here for a month now.
Yeah, I'll be stuck here for a month. And that's why I say we, as a movie community, the only positive thing is to put out the movies we have and talk about the great movies we have access to. I feel like at this time, it's even more important that we're doing this type of podcast, because it's important to be like, hey, what's good?
I wonder, it's like, I think there's also a matter of timing and maybe spacing things out, because I also wonder, depending on how long this goes on for, what if there's no way to technically run out of stuff to put out, but there's potentially a lull that you might have to risk, where you're just like, well, those are all our heavy hitters,
and it's gonna come for
the stuff that we were planning to do isn't done yet.
We're talking a lot about movies right now, but it's hitting the video game industry for real. Like, we're talking about shortages and games being delayed because they literally don't have the workers to make the games. Like, we're talking about games that are done, and they're like, we don't have the people to be in the factory to make these games.
Yeah, and I'm sure the digital sales right now for certain games are like skyrocketing. That might give them a message about it, but that's mostly because they have no choice. I know people converting their copies that they had like pre-ordered at a physical store to digital because the stores are closed, so they're not going to be able to pick their stuff up.
It makes sense. It makes so much sense. And it's like, with Animal Crossing and Doom right now, which I feel like they both come at an opportune time.
Like, I have Persona 5 Royal coming out on like the very end of the month, and so far it's still set for its delivery, but I'm still just watching it. One more week and it'll be here. Hopefully nothing happens.
And I immediately have to say that like as much as I love getting my games and I want my games, like, and I want my movies, I don't feel GameStop is handling this well at all. Like, if we're talking about companies that are literally think they're being essential, like, when they're not, you know, like these are companies that they don't need you to come into the stores, and they're keeping the stores open. Like, GameStop can ship you shit. Like, they can literally bring in the workers to do all this, like, shipping shit.
And even if you didn't want to deal with physical merchandise, because there's also a question of what happens to, like, the postal service at some point.
It's been touching.
But even if you didn't have that, it's as simple as just like, well, you can buy the digital copy here. Yeah. We can email the code, etc.
Exactly.
Like,
you still get your gamer points.
Yeah,
like,
there's so many ways to circumvent that.
And Best Buy, as much as I just bought Animal Crossing from that, I was super surprised they weren't like, no, bro, you ain't getting that fucking Animal Crossing, bro. like they were like, I was super surprised that they, like, I ordered it yesterday, so it's way after launch, and because I'm basically being peer pressured because everyone's like,
well, that's the ultimate prison money right now is copies of New Horizons and toilet paper.
They're like,
it's like,
you got that?
It's going
got
around,
Animal Crossing?
It's going around like bars of soap and chocolate milks and cigarettes. It's ridiculous.
Oh man, but it's true. It's this thing where these companies don't need to be open to function, and they're still doing it. You know, like, and that's my only problem. And it's funny because the movie industry immediately responded to this, and the gaming industry seems to be like, we got games to sell. You got to be stuck inside all day. We got games to sell. Like,
yeah, it's you would think that the gaming industry would understand more because digital versus physical has already been sort of a coexisting thing.
Yeah,
which is, I mean, if it can work for games, it could work for film.
And I do believe that there is...
But it is sort of a different situation. It's not entirely equatable.
And I was talking to somebody about this. They're like, well, don't you think that everyone could just work from home and make a great game right now? And you're like, no. Because if we're talking about a 1 to 2 person team, or maybe even a 5-person team, yes, they may make some great games right now.
If we're talking
a 250 person team.
Yeah, if we're talking about low end, like indie developing teams, but if you're talking about like AAA games that have hundreds of workers on it,
I'm worried about Xenoblade Chronicles Remake. I'm worried about.
It's not as simple as just like, oh, they could just work from home. It's like, well, think about the stuff that they have to send each other, communicate with.
Those are huge files.
Everything slows down.
Yeah, everything's going to be a lot slower, and I don't mind the delay to make these games happen. Like, I always say with game delays, it's better. The game only comes out once. Yeah. You know, like, and then you have that reputation forever, even if you fix it. Like, there's some great games that they fix afterward, they put out patches, and you gotta salute them. But that's become this thing where it's like you get this terrible reputation at the beginning.
Don't get me started. That's a whole other can of worms. I could go on for hours.
Yeah, that could be a whole podcast
about games that are practically released incomplete and patched after the fact, which, you know, at least we have that option, but what bothers me about it is the sheer complacency about it.
Yeah.
The Square Enix.
Yeah, exactly.
Final Fantasy 15, anyone?
Yeah, and...
Well, you understand, Frank. Or like Street Fighter 5. Something released like bare bones, but the content released after the fact. But you understand, Frank, in like 2 years, it's going to be the greatest game ever.
And you can say the same thing about little indie things like the Power Rangers game, Battle for the Grid. That came out so bare bones, and then they've dropped all the stuff. And sure, that game's become something really cool, but when it started, everyone was like, so that one game with 6 fighters in it? Thanks, no thanks.
6 fighters and no voice acting?
Yeah, you're like, no. And now they fixed all that. They've added voice actors, they added a story mode, they put a bunch of different characters, and you're like, cool, but you always will have that first impressions. Yeah. But like, first impression. Like, you know.
But
like,
that's also sort of the complacency with having the option of being able to patch it after the fact. So it's a double-edged sword.
Because you wouldn't, but that's the thing is we're entering an era where people are trying to patch movies. We're talking movies releasing. We already talked about Star Wars revisionist, but I'm talking literally right now. We have Sonic the Hedgehog revisionist stuff going on, and then you have Cats doing really weird stuff. So Cats came out digitally. Also, they decided just to drop that.
At least with Sonic, it was one of those things where like the movie hadn't released yet.
Yeah.
They decided to push it back to change the model. Whereas, like, Cats was already released, and it was released with the promise that the CGI would be improved later.
Yeah.
Which is just, like, very video gamey, and
it's super video gamey.
Like
it's super weird that they're like, oh, we have better graphics, but it's not ready this week.
Yeah.
You're like, then why put out the movie at all?
It's a double-edged sword, because it's nice to be able to have that option that you can fix it, because back in the day, particularly with games, you could have a game-breaking bug in the game, and you would just have to try to avoid it.
Yeah, you'd have to be like, no, please don't get near that.
So now we can get rid of those. We can get like live patches and updates, but at the same time, we've also become complacent about it, so we don't worry about it too much.
Oh,
so
we're like, oh yeah, that thing there, that's bad.
Yeah, so there's this disconnect with like quality assurance.
Yeah. And I agree. And it is super weird with Cats, and because they also had a butthole edition they were talking about too.
Oh, yeah, like they were trying to make it realistic, so like the cats had like sphincters and stuff, like you do.
But
you ever seen cats? They got buttholes.
I was worried when I heard that headline. I'm like, so is that like Idris Elba butthole? We talking Taylor Swift? Either any butthole, not okay. Like that's what I'm saying. Like, why was this? So, like, it's like the Sonic thing where you're like, why didn't somebody just say, this is fucking weird?
How did it get this far before someone said no?
Yeah, like, why does it come to the fans to be like, no? And I know it's not all the time. I know there's some people in the company being like, all right, I'm just going to try to make my paycheck because fuck, you know, like.
You know, the studio's just like, what, it looks great. It's going to make money. So
it's going to make money. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
But it's a wild thing to look at this landscape and try to figure out what these companies are going to do, because we have Disney coming right out being like, we're going to release these movies, and NBC Universal coming out. So now we have to think that everybody else will fall in line. Like,
I mean, I guess because they're definitely on like the top of the totem pole, so maybe everyone will just kind of follow that same example.
Yeah.
But it's also sort of an uncertainty, so people are also sort of waiting it out and playing it by ear, which is what Warner Brothers is doing for Wonder Woman, since again that's not out until June, I think.
I think for movies like past May, you should be like, we should wait it out. But like for anything before that, they should maybe think about this digital release. Like this is because it's the only problem is not knowing if people will jump on it the way they would if it was at a theater. You know, like when you go to a theater, you have a couple choices, and some people, that's what they do. They go to a theater on Friday and then they just pick a fucking movie. I don't know who.
Yeah, and even beyond that,
I've seen
like,
people do that. Like,
even if like the theater crowds the market with like the big tentpoles, people love to go to the movies to see those. Like, Endgame doesn't have the same novelty that it does
when you're watching it on Disney Plus.
It at home.
Like,
you want
it
to
really
see that
doesn't.
with a crowd. First weekend, everyone's screaming at every little reference, every little joke, every little fan service moment, and it's an experience. Again, drive-through theaters. Like, we're talking drive-in theaters. Well, it could work. It could work because there's been those. You've seen those clips of people projecting in Italy on buildings and stuff, and you're like, well, that might be the future. You know, the
like,
way to go.
It could be the way to go.
I can't really equate it personally because I've actually never been to a drive-in theater.
No, you've never been to drive-in. It's nice. You know, like, it's cool. You get the little sound box, and either it clips onto your car inside your car or it's outside your car, and you
and then there were also like the way they used to do it in the old days was you would have to like tune your radio to a broadcast, which is kind of cool. But there's some in New Hampshire that are really nice, and I hope those guys do well during this. I hope they don't have to close down, because like, what are you guys exchanging? I hope it's just like, here, take my fucking money. I'll hand you one side of my money. You take the other side. Let's not. I guess you could treat it like a cash checking place where it's like a big secure window and you can only speak through the microphone. You have to like slip everything.
Here you go.
It's like super lock and key.
Because that could work for people having that sort of theater experience, but then you have to think about other things. Are people going to run to VR for watching these screens even on a bigger screen, you know, like, because you're stuck indoors. Is VR the answer? Is that where video, I know that's where video games will eventually lead to.
Yeah, I would say,
but movies?
I would say if VR was more of a commodity,
Yeah.
and maybe reasonably more advanced, because we're still sort of in the infancy of VR. It's still constantly evolving.
We're in the infancy of consumer VR.
Yeah.
I feel like VR's been around forever. Like 80s, 90s, we've had I'm doing this with giant quotations. VR, because don't remember we did have the what's the Game Boy where you put it up to your eyes? Virtual Boy,
greatest console of all time. To get a migraine.
And like, so that concept of virtual reality has been around, and we've had virtual reality for a long time, but I'm talking about like consumer, like in your house, everybody can have this like high performing VR headset. That's just beginning.
Yeah, you could certainly imagine like the display on like a really detailed set of goggles where it looks like you're sitting in a virtual theater.
I've done it,
and you have the distance there.
When you on the Netflix app, and you can put it to a theater, and it looks like you're in a theater, and it can work. It is weird, but it will get better.
Yeah, that and VR doesn't work necessarily for everyone.
No,
same with
it doesn't. Sometimes it can make you feel sick.
sick.
Like I understand it can really like throw some people off, but like I really do think that maybe that's another way that because maybe you have a bunch of your friends in the VR next to you in the theater, and you can watch together and be right next to your friend.
They're just low poly avatars that just wave
waving
at you.
at each other. But there's also people are doing. They call it's an app called Netflix Party, where you can watch Netflix all together and pause and start the movie all together, and you can all chat and video chat together.
Yeah,
which
it's interesting because that's something I sort of do with my friends
already. Yeah, you already do that.
Yeah, I have a bunch of friends who are like scattered all over the globe, and we watch movies together. We get our hands on a copy, be it physical or buying it digitally, and we just time it. It's just like, all right, 3, 2, 1, play, and we just watch it at the same time as if we're sitting next to each other. So the idea of making specific services that are more intuitive to that makes sense, which is interesting because a lot of the oldest online friend that I have, I met through a service which is no longer available that YouTube used to do called YouTube Streams.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with like live streaming.
Yeah.
It was a chat room service that they used to have where someone based on their channel had their own room, and you would put videos in a queue to watch at the same time while you guys were chatting.
This. Yeah, I remember that.
I met a bunch of friends that way.
That's wild.
And then once it was gone, we just kind of moved on to like AIM, then we moved on to Skype, and now we're on Discord.
That's wild. That's might be the future of at least the next couple months, you know, like is just like watching movies together like that. Like, because I feel like it is in its infancy, so it will get more isolating, and we need to find ways to have not only the theater experience, but the theater experience with each other, you know, like, definitely important to do. And I feel like you and your friends have figured out a great way to do it, and I feel like
so the idea of
easier,
just like taking that and just making it again more of a commodity sounds fine by me. I've already valued the experience in our sort of like low rent way of doing it.
So you're like, it could happen, it could work. But it's an interesting landscape going forward because we're looking at some of our favorite things maybe being stopped. I heard that a lot of action figures and Gundam have stopped being produced, like, you know, like kit stuff, like, and those are the type of things that we need to keep the time going by, you know, like, and I'm worried that hopefully they can get back to building them, but who knows?
We need Legos.
We need Legos.
But that's also the advantage of having digital content like that, just as if you can't afford Legos or if you can't get your hands on them, you can always play Minecraft.
You can always do that. And it's interesting because I'll bring up one more scary thought before the end, is that I feel like this coronavirus will usher in the age of automation. We're talking about that we can't have people next to each other, but we could sure have one dude show up and supervise 6 robots, like, or at least a conveyor belt of 3 robots, you know, like, it's like this.
Yep, I could certainly see it being like a topic brought up in the discussion of automation.
Yeah,
Just like
this is like a moment
someone
where
brings
this
it up
could
at a board meeting. It's like, well, we wouldn't have to deal with that again.
Yeah, they're like, well, we
Just
could
the
just
immediate
hire robots.
push.
Yeah, like this could be a moment where companies have to pivot, and they will pivot towards automation, no question.
Because
like,
they've already been flirting with it for years anyway.
yeah, so
it all started like even as something as simple as a supermarket. First there was the self checkout. Now there's the robot with the googly eyes, like walking around.
Marty doesn't check your groceries, though.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
All Marty does is go, there's a fucking spill here. There's a spill here. And sometimes he looks you dead in the eyes and tells you, I'm going to kill you. And that's it. That's all he does. That's all Marty does.
That's baby steps. But again, that's flirting with the idea.
It's true. And that's the thing is that what happens in a world of video game development where all of a sudden they don't need the people to make the CDs anymore or the Blu-ray discs, you know, for Sony and Xbox, you know, like.
But this is just a topic of automation that definitely precedes. I mean, it's definitely been talked about before us.
Yeah.
There was like paranoia surrounding this, like back before we even knew back before people even had like home computers.
Yeah.
There was always that sort of fear of automation.
Of course.
So it's sort of an unending conversation until it actually happens.
Yeah, but it's
but it is interesting to know.
It's just interesting because, like, what if this is the push that Uber needs to be like, well, here's fully autonomous fleet of vehicles instead of actual Ubers, you know, like what it like, you know,
Talk
like
about another one they've been flirting with is the idea of just automated cars.
Yeah.
It's in like every movie you see now that takes place in the future that like automated
because
cars
it's obviously
are a
gonna
thing.
happen. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm gonna be a grandfather and they're gonna be like, Grandpa, you drove a car when you were younger? What? You're a madman. And I'm just going to be like, we all drove cars. like, we all did that. They're going to be like, you guys were crazy. Like, because it's going to be one of those things that they're just going to like take it away from us and then we'll never want to do it again, you know, like, because it will just be like, yeah, I got in the car and I showed up at work. I got to play on my phone, you know, watch a fucking movie on the screen. Like, sounds good to me, you know, like if I could get in a couple episodes of anime going into Boston instead of having to pay attention to driving, my life would be so much more like if you're from here, you know, Boston is an hour away from Boston, and that's just standard math. Other than in this coronavirus pandemic, which now it's no longer an hour from Boston.
Things are a lot quieter.
Things that you could get a lot faster through the city. It's really is like one of those things where you're stuck in traffic for so long. And what if I could actually fucking watch something or, you know, not have to get pissed off at the next driver next to me, you know? People will never look back on this. Like they did when they were like, well, I don't know if, cars are going to replace horses, and then they were like, we don't have to feed them. They
don't keel over.
They don't fucking shit everywhere.
They don't die. I mean, cars can die, but you know what I mean. They don't whinny when they die.
And
I don't have to stare my car dead in the eyes as it passes over.
Jesus Christ. But it's one of those things that, like, it's going to change our industry, and it's already happening with video production. We're talking about people being like, hey, let's switch to VR. Hey, we're talking switching to webcasting. Like, a lot of online shows and shows that are very small things, like The Daily Show with Trevor Noah. He's filming that on his couch with editors editing in things, you know, like.
It's interesting to see.
That's wild.
It's interesting to see stuff that you would never think would work remote.
Yeah.
Having to conform to being remote because you have no other choice. It's been an interesting experiment.
I was impressed by John Oliver's production because it looked like it could be anywhere, you know, like it could, and I'm sure it was in his actual apartment, you know, like for the last week tonight. And and that's the thing is, we as creatives and production people have to adapt. And that's the strange moment here, is that we have to figure out what the future is. And right here, right now, I think that it's going to be, we're talking digital games and we're talking digital movies, you know, like we're talking, which I know everyone's always feared, like, oh, I don't want, like, I love my physical copies. I love them so much, especially, hey, if this apocalypse keeps going, we won't have internet, but at least I'll have my Blu-ray collection. Like,
So while we're at it, so while everyone's just quiet at home, and with this toilet paper apocalypse that's happening right now, can we just switch to bidets? Can we make bidets more of a thing over here in the U.S.?
Doesn't sound too bad. Like,
It's worked in other places.
yeah, I don't know why. Like, it's big in Japan and lots of European
it makes
countries.
sense to just
like, I
have
don't
a
understand.
wash basin for your business as opposed to just smearing it with paper and hoping for the best.
Yeah, it's a weird topic for an American. I feel like most Americans will just say, "I don't want water shot up my asshole," but the reality is, you probably need some water shot up your asshole. Like, I'm just being truthful here with you.
I mean,
Americans.
it's kind of like the jokes whenever like the government shuts down, quote unquote, and they're just like, so quick, while they're shut down, switch to metric.
Switch to metric.
Quick, while no one's looking.
When no one's looking, it's raid Area 51 again.
Yeah.
Like,
Let's start using Celsius like the rest of the world. Stop being different.
oh man, but it's true. It's like we don't know how far this is gonna go, so it's one of those things where we have to keep planning for an unseeable future, and we're realizing that we do need the arts. We do need all of this
more than ever. Just like, it's really showed how important entertainment or the arts is.
Yeah,
when you have like nothing else at home to like keep you sane, not to make you stir crazy. I've already heard stories of like my friends just like, dude, my mom is getting stir crazy. She started cleaning the entire house. It's getting nuts. She threatened to clean my room. No one cleans my room.
it's true, and you feel bad. Now, let's switch to a more wholesome topics to help our viewers. What are you playing to get through this fucking apocalypse? Which, right now, we'll do a self-plug before we start. I made an article on GalaxyofGeek.com, 10 really long Switch games you can play during your quarantine. It's on GalaxyofGeek.com, where we post this podcast. Check out the article. And you can check out 10 really long games you might like. All right, go on.
Plug over.
Plug over. Nice.
So even before all of this hit, it was sort of a gap between like big AAA releases for a while.
Yes.
So
and this was the big month.
Yeah.
March was the month. And we
start.
lost a couple games here because of the delay.
There was more supposed to come out. Way too much stuff was supposed to come out in March before it. Thankfully, some of this got pushed back.
Yeah.
It was getting ridiculous.
And Cyberpunk 2077 was supposed to come out, and that got pushed way before
that game
this.
doesn't exist, Frank.
That game doesn't exist.
That game doesn't exist. It's never coming out.
What do you mean? I've seen footage of this
It's
game.
never coming out.
What do you mean? Don't say me like that,
Fake
bro.
news.
Fake news.
You just saw a deep fake on YouTube. It's fine.
See, I'm playing The Witcher right now, and that would make me really sad if that did come out, because I'm playing Witcher 3.
It's your first taste of CD Projekt Red.
Yes.
And you're just like, yes.
It really is. I'm like, these guys, I want to play all their games.
But
like
so even before this all hit, I was using the time between like the big AAA releases to just kind of catch up on my backlog. So I have a bunch of stuff.
This is a great time for the backlog, guys. Think about the backlog.
I'm one of those people who still plays retro, relatively speaking, as long as it's feasible for me to play. I don't care to go back to like older stuff. If there's plenty of stuff, there are a million games out there that I haven't played.
Yeah, it's the same way with films, guys. If you're like, oh, there's not so many great new films coming out, I don't want to watch The Invisible Man or The Hunt. You're like, shut the fuck up. There's literally over 100 years of fucking movies.
Yeah.
Go back.
First off, the notion that there are no good movies ever coming out means you just don't watch enough movies, and you only shout out to the theaters for like the big stuff. You just need to do your research.
I don't.
And then even beyond that, even if that was true, yes, there's 100 years of films
100 years of films, and I'm talking every one of those years we were like, hey, this one's the best one, and that's just 100 of them that you could watch and probably be blown away by.
Yeah.
Don't follow the Green Book year, but every other year you should probably be like,
a couple of weird years.
okay,
sure.
there's a couple years.
No one really. Sometimes you sort of have the instincts, just like that's a bad choice, but it's hard to tell how a film will last.
Yeah,
It's always sort of hard to judge. But as far as games are concerned, I missed out on Shadow of the Tomb Raider when that first came out.
Yeah.
I really liked the first 2 games. I just never got around to playing the third.
nice.
Because I was unemployed at the time. So now I had the money. I grabbed that. I'm still chipping away at the Resident Evil 2 remake, which is super good. I have The World Ends With You on DS because I bought
nice.
a new Nintendo 3DS just so I could play some DS games again.
Nice.
And that's an RPG that I missed out on that I want to play. I finished Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. There's plenty of stuff to play.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need to always chase the zeitgeist of like all the new AAA releases.
And at the moment, there might not be a bunch of AAA releases.
Yeah, and there's
that
a
you can
bunch of
buy
stuff
from.
that I still want. Like, I want Doom Eternal, but I have enough stuff to play right now. I mean, I want to play Untitled Goose Game.
Yeah, I do want to play Untitled Goose Game. I want to get back. I want to get to that. Right at the moment, I'm playing Witcher 3 and Overwatch. I'm switching between the two. That's been my last week. I'm head over heels for Witcher 3. It is just... I've never played a Witcher game before, and I'm just blown away. Because, like, as much as I love the game, and it's so great, I play Gwent, and I'm like, fuck! I'm like, damn, that's a good card game.
Be the prime opportunity for me to talk crap about Bethesda.
Yes.
Because you had messaged me saying it's just like, wow, it outclasses Skyrim. And I had to clarify and correct you and say, dude, Witcher 2 outclassed Skyrim. And it came out a year before Skyrim came out. I want to clarify, I do like Skyrim, and I do like Bethesda's games.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where, like, when those are the only examples you have for that specific type of subgenre, then you don't know what the real good stuff is. It comes down to, like, that conversation we had on one of the episodes about Breath of the Wild versus, like, Horizon.
Yeah.
Like, Breath of the Wild is a great game and a good example of how to do an open-world game, but it also falls into sort of rookie mistakes that other open world games have long since ironed out.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't know because Breath of the Wild is a lot of people's first open world game.
Yeah.
Just like, it's great, but don't tell me it's the best open world game.
It's true.
Don't try to come at me with that.
And guys, if you play Overwatch, hit me up. Like, I want to play some Overwatch. I'm really enjoying it. I like playing as a physical character. Like, I'm not playing as a like
Long range?
Not long range at all. I'm literally playing as Bridget or Reinhardt. Like, at the moment, I'm just like, I want to go up and I want to hit the people with my mace. Like, I'm like, so literally all my play of the game features are just like me being like, like just whipping people with my stuff, and you're like, that's a good game. Like,
This is a Monster Hunter Frank.
yeah, well, I did it. Like, I got my Monster Hunter, but it's one of those games that is endless and multiplayer, and it's fun to play with other people,
Yeah,
and I recommend that to people in this while you're feeling isolated and social distancing. Play some multiplayer games. Like, as much as I love my big single players, it's nice to hear somebody else's voice, even if they're telling you suck and your mom should die.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear somebody else talk for a little bit.
I mean, this is the time. Play games that have been on the backlog. Watch some movies that you missed out on. Read.
What?
Read. Read. It predates VHS. It's this thing with paper and words. It's
So
like
it's not Laserdisc?
no. It's not beta either. Believe it or not.
Ooh, not
it's
beta.
not even CED.
Shit.
It's words on paper that you follow your eyes with, left to right, top to bottom, and it's like an image forms in your head through your imagination.
My God.
Very low
That
tech.
sounds like
Very,
drugs,
very low
Deshaun.
tech.
That sounds like drugs. Are you
Well-
taking drugs?
Depends on the book.
But really, this is a great time to get into all our hobbies, guys. Like, as much as you're probably listening to this being like, I'm a hobby nerd anyways, you're like, this is the time to, like, dive a little bit deeper into those things. And also, maybe, learn your craft. Whatever you do as your job, you should probably go for a class for that. I
But
don't
there's
know.
there's such an abundance of free time now that you might as well do it enjoying something, but sometimes doing just the one thing can be tedious. So just mix it up.
Yeah, just mix it up. Like I said, I've been switching between Overwatch and Witcher 3 to keep me,
I
going.
tend to do that myself. I tend to have like 2 games to focus on. One sort of might break from the other one, especially when I'm playing a big RPG, because I try not to play more than one RPG.
I really don't think I could play another RPG along with Witcher 3. I really don't. It's so deep that like I would come back and be like, what the fuck was I doing? Like, and sure they try to be like, hey, it's this thing, but I really do. It's just so much better to be like, I'm going to play one game and go through it. And you don't have to be stuck in that one game. Like, definitely play another game and definitely watch another movie. Right now, for TV shows, I'm watching Samurai Jack because Deshaun let me borrow Samurai Jack.
Because we want to potentially do a topic on that.
Yes, so that will be coming up. I'm at the end of season 1 right now. But we also, I've been storming through anime. Have you been storming through anime?
No, I wouldn't say no more than usual, but I'm
no
also...
more than he usually storms through anime.
No more than the usual 3 to 4 shows I watch every season.
What's a good one to watch right now?
Well, this season is actually wrapping up, so most of the shows from this season are done. I haven't really picked my picks for next season yet, but the 2 ones that I've enjoyed the most are It Invaded and Keep Your Hands Off Aizuken. One is a show, I think Jeff Thu from Mother's Basement summed it up perfectly as it's Psychopaths meets Psychonauts. So it's like a Minority Report type thing where you go into like people's psyches and representation. Cool. You use it to like solve crimes, stuff like that. So that's fun. And then Keep Your Hands Off Aizuken is just about a show about loving art.
Oh, that's
it's
cool.
about an anime club who wants to make animation and just all the trials and tribulations and how you make with the techniques, how you try to sell to an audience, how do you make this as a business. It's really interesting. It's great.
Interesting.
That one's almost done too. That only has like an episode left.
And I right now I finished My Hero Academia. If you guys
caught up.
I'm caught up. If you guys are not caught up, like, this is a great show.
That's another one we'll probably do a separate episode about once we have like the time for it.
But I also did the time I reincarnated as a slime because I wanted like a fun RPG, lighthearted.
Yeah,
thing.
I saw that you were like still watching the OVA because I went on Funimation to watch Paranoia Agent. Like, I know what you're watching all the time.
The OVAs were weird. I ain't gonna put it past that.
You're the only person I know who's ever referred to an OVA as an OVA.
OVA? What not?
I mean, it makes sense, but I've always just ever heard OVA. I'm sure like a few of my anime nerds are gonna be like, OVA? What? It's not too bad. I once heard
Deshaun getting the OVA.
Getting the OVA.
I don't think he can do it. His body will break.
God damn it. How dare you?
Yes.
It's not that bad. I once heard someone refer to a meme as a meme once.
Oh my god, no. Oh my god. One of my old bosses said mem one time to me, and I was like, a what? And he was like, yeah, you've seen those funny things online, memes. And I was like, no, yes, memes, yes. I like immediately was like, yes, of course. I've seen many a mem. Like,
you didn't have the heart to tell
yeah, you're just like, no, let him go. Let him keep that up.
Let someone else break it to him.
Let his like child break it to him one day and be like, Dad, you're so old, you can't say meme. Like,
yeah, just like tell him that Santa Claus isn't real.
Oh man. But basically, guys, we're trying to say stay safe. That's basically this whole podcast is being like, we want our industries, we love our industries, and we want them to be safe, and we want to support them as much as we can.
Yeah, and I think it's a more constructive discussion to speak about how we could change things and alter things to make things better, as opposed to going into panic mode and saying, this is the end of the industry, this is the end of all things. That was the joke in the beginning, but it's not necessarily the case.
It's not no, it's not, because there is going to be hope on the other side. We will get out of this, but it's going to take a big shift in what we do and what everybody does. It's definitely going to be one of those moments that will change things to come. Like in the same way that 9/11 makes it so you can't bring a 3-inch knife on any airplane or any 3 ounces of liquid. This will be like, hey, fucking wash your hands, you piece of shit. Like, that's gonna be like for years. Like, it'll be like you won't have people being like for anymore being like, oh yeah, I peed, but I walked out. No. It's going to be like shaming. It's going to be like, did you fucking wash your hands, bro? Like,
No,
don't fucking hang out with
I'm
me.
evil.
No, because I'm evil. I thank you, Lex Luthor. It's just-
Or Flash in
Oh,
Lex
or Flash.
Luthor's body. Hey, while you guys have so much free time, why don't you watch Justice League and Justice League Unlimited?
Yeah.
Just watch go. If you've never watched all the DC animated universe, just watch it all.
So,
Except Static
but that
Shock.
brings up another question. So HBO Max, is that what they were going to
That's the
call
new
the new
one,
one? Is that still going to come out on time? Because that was supposed to be the combination of all their networks, and we would get DC Universe on HBO
that
Max.
was due in May, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this could be like, I hope that they'll just launch it the same, or maybe they'll take advantage of this and launch early. Like, because you would think that they have all the content. It's not
I
like
mean, it
that's
was like the only one I was actually thinking about paying for.
Yeah, no, I was thinking
Because
about
for literally everything else I bum for. And believe me,
That's true. You do take my Disney Plus and my Funimation.
Believe me, I'll hit you up in May too for this.
You're
The
like,
only
give me
thing I
HBO
have
Max.
on my own is like my own Prime account. And to be honest, oddly enough, I don't really watch much stuff on Prime. I'm there for the free shipping.
but Marvelous Miss Maisel, we just finished
I
it
also
this
wanna
week.
watch,
oh, so good.
And I also liked what little I watched of The Tick before it got canceled.
It was good,
And
yeah.
I want to watch Fleabag.
I also want to watch. Oh yeah, Fleabag looks good, but The Boys, I've missed out on The
Yeah.
Boys, and that's definitely one of those things that I want to get to. And somebody down below stop me if that show does suck, and I just like am like, hey, is that a comic book show? And somebody will be like, don't do it, bro. Like,
I mean, I've heard nothing but great
I've heard
things
good
about
things
it.
about
I've
it.
heard it actually improves on the source material because from what I heard, The Boys was a great concept by Ennis.
Yeah.
But it was kind of the same joke over and over again, and it got tedious, and it didn't need to run for as long as it did.
possible.
And I've heard that the show sort of circumvents that, not just make it about the one thing.
cool. All right, I'm down.
That's what
for
you
it.
got to do in adaptation.
Yeah, right. So guys, stay safe. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. And listen to podcasts. Like, go
You know what?
outside on your porch.
Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. And while you're at it, why don't you wash your face too?
yeah,
You
right?
filthy animal.
Like, but this is a great time to go to GalaxyGeek.com and, take our podcast outdoors, sit on a porch or something, and listen to a podcast.
Yeah, that's been the weird thing because I'm so used to listening to like podcasts and audiobooks on the commute.
Yeah.
That it's just like I don't listen to these inside. What is happening? But now I've just been taking to just like, I'll just put it on if I'm cooking or if I'm cleaning, stuff like that. It's going to be a lot of that. so.
Exactly. A lot of people are thinking they're not getting their podcast time because they're not commuting. And I think you just got to find other ways to work it in. We've been listening to Sawbones, a great podcast, medical history podcast.
Yeah, I've been listening
we've been
to-
listening while cooking.
I've been listening to Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum. It's a great name for a podcast.
Yeah, Jesus.
every show he opens with is just like, thank you, whoever the guest name is, for letting me be inside of it.
You're like, "Ugh."
And it's just like, yeah, but it's Michael Rosenbaum.
Yeah,
so
right.
It's the Flash and like Smallville Lex Luthor, which ironically is the best live action Lex Luthor we've ever had. That makes me sad. He's great in
true.
it though. But yeah, and I just
what are you
finished
talking about? Gene Hackman's pretty fucking great.
for a specific version of Lex.
Yes, for a very specific version.
But
of
I
it.
had like just finished an audiobook the other day.
Yeah.
I just finished it while I was cooking. I'm
There
like,
you go.
oh, well, yeah, I had an hour left on it. I didn't think I was going to get to it anytime soon because I thought I was going to have to wait until I eventually have to go back into
Yeah.
the office. But I'm like, I'll just put it on when I'm cooking. It's like, oh, I'm done.
Oh, I'm done. Exactly. So, guys, thank you for listening. Please subscribe, like, find us on Twitter. Yep, Frank. And
Mod Karika.
guys, please let's talk. I mean, we're all hanging out, so let's scream at
chat. Each other. It'd be great.
I did get peer pressured into Animal Crossing, so I think there'll be a bit of Animal Crossing.
Oh, I have
playing.
friends trying. It ain't going to work, but they're trying.
So yeah, maybe you'll borrow it after I get some. Probably not. He's shaking his head like, nah, Frank, I got deep RPGs to play. Like, I ain't doing that shit. But thank you guys again, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
See you next time.